Y'all ready? All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. 13 months ago, a horrible tragedy took place in our city with the killing of Breonna Taylor. Since then, Louisville and the entire country have been coming to a heightened reckoning with the need for police reform and racial justice. Here in Louisville, we have taken numerous steps to produce a higher level of police community legitimacy and improve the co-production of public safety. Because we will only all be safe if we all recognize that we are all in this together. Our reform steps include signing Breonna's Law, implementing new leadership for the Louisville Metro Police Department, establishing our Civilian Review and Accountability Board, an Office of Inspector General, and hiring the national firm Hillard Heinz to undertake an independent top-to-bottom review of LMPD. We have begun implementation of dozens of reform recommendations from the review and from the settlement with Breonna Taylor's family. And the budget that I released last week takes many steps to reimagine public safety with additional funding streams to help us reform how we create and deliver that safety with work from all of Metro government and in partnership with all of the residents of our city. And as I will continue to say, we know we have much more work to do. That is why I strongly welcome the announcement made by Attorney General Merrick Garland earlier today of a patterns and practice investigation into LMPD. Chief Erica Shields, Council President David James, County Attorney Mike O'Connell, and I, along with members of our staffs, met with representatives of the Department of Justice earlier today, and we all share a commitment and an urgency to this review, which is part and parcel of the work we've been doing to reimagine public safety and build greater trust, respect, transparency, and accountability with the people of Louisville and LMPD. Throughout my administration, we have welcomed audits and external reviews because they are critical learning and improvement opportunities. And in my conversation with other mayors whose cities have been participants with the DOJ, they have reported the experience as very beneficial and something that helped them produce greater police community legitimacy. I also believe this review shows that the checks and balances of our national government are working. If there are questions about a local police department needing further review, it is imperative that the federal government step in and provide that review. And I appreciate that the Attorney General mentioned the reform steps that we have already taken here in Louisville in his earlier announcement today. The recommendations of this DOJ review will help us continue to pursue our efforts toward being the best police department in America and producing a safer, more equitable city for all of our residents. To the officers of LMPD, let me repeat, as I have often said, you have an unbelievably difficult job working to keep us safe while policing equitably across our community. Good officers will welcome this announcement and see it as an exciting time to be part of reform and transformation. To the people of Louisville, know that you are the ultimate winners of this review, which will help us remove, as quickly as possible, any obstacles that stand in the way of Louisville becoming a more just and a more compassionate city, a city of equity and constitutional policing for all of our residents. So thank you, Attorney General. We stand ready to assist in your efforts. Next up, I'd like to turn things over to LMPD Chief Erica Shields. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. I can't say that I was entirely surprised by the DOJ's announcement, and I think that as someone who truly believes in police reform and doing things differently, which will only help us as a profession in the long run, I think it's a good thing. I think that it's necessary because police reform, quite honestly, is needed in near every agency across the country. And if us at Louisville LMPD are going to be one of the flagship departments for change, then bring it on. We're going to deliver. What I have found in my short time here is a department that is comprised of some of the most honorable men and women I've ever worked with in law enforcement. They want to get it right. They want the community to be proud of them. And so what I look at this as an opportunity to quicken the pace in which we can make those changes essential so that the community trusts us and believes in us. The city had invested in, prior to my arrival, and it was rolled out shortly after I started, in an independent audit of the department, a top-to-bottom review by Hilliard Hines, third party, and it put forward a number of recommendations that were extremely beneficial for us as we develop our strategic plan moving forward and as we operationalize changes. But the reality of it is what the DOJ is doing is they're bringing more resources, drilling down in greater detail, and also providing the guidance of what it is the federal government wants to see nationally from law enforcement agencies. And there has to be clarity and uniformity on that if we're ever going to be in a space where policing is a profession that we can be proud of in every corner of America. To the officers, the employees, what I will say is this venture will only be successful if you are engaged. Your feedback, your involvement, and your observations are imperative. The job that you do day in and day out is extremely difficult, extremely dangerous. And that's the one piece of this equation of all the criticism that comes on police that we have to also deal with and we have to get our arms around. And that is just the sheer volume of illegal guns that are on the street. Because I think if we don't address that as well, we're going to have a much harder time getting our arms around this. And it is imperative then, as you as officers, that you engage in this process. It's okay if we've done things wrong. We're going to do it differently. We're going to do it better. But this is your future. It is our future. And we need to articulate what's worked and what hasn't worked so that we can be afforded those resources and the assistance that's so desperately needed to get us in a space where we can be proud of who we are and proud of our performance day in and day out. And I do welcome this, as the mayor does, because I think that we're in a space that we need support. But I also firmly believe in LMPD and the city of Louisville, and we've got this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now hear from the President of the Metro Council, David James.
Good afternoon, everybody. I, too, welcome this opportunity to have the Attorney General of the United States look at the patterns and practices of LMPD. I think our officers at LMPD really want to have the very best police department in the country. And I think our citizens want to have the very best police department in the country. But I think there has to be some cultural change that takes place in order for that to happen. And I think that Chief Shields is doing a fantastic job. However, as she said, I think that she needs some help to get that done. And I think having the federal government come in and look at what we have going well and what we don't have going so well is very important. And I don't think that it's any secret that we have a police department that has some troubles, but we also have a police department that has some of the very best police officers in the country. And so I look forward to this. I welcome it. The Metro Council welcomes it. And I know that our police department can do better and that some change has to take place, and that I know that our community wants to do better and have good relationships with our police department. And I believe those things can happen. Thank you.
Thank you, President James. You know, another way to look at this is we've been building momentum toward this type of audit now for the last 6 to 9 months in the community. Again, unfortunately, out of a tragedy. So we've got a lot of experience with audits like this, with the desire to improve like this. We've seen many of our LMPD officers embrace this type of movement toward becoming the best police force in the country and reform and all that's involved with that, because America is at a crossroads with policing. We just happen to be the city we're talking about here today. So the opportunity for us to really get this right in a new way that enhances this police community legitimacy that we're talking about is just really an outstanding opportunity for us. And one of our critical partners with that journey is Michael Connell, our county attorney, who will now give his thoughts. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor Fischer. My office, and I know everyone up here from listening to them, that we welcome this with open arms. Louisville needs this level of accountability to fully push ahead with needed reform. This is what our community needs at this moment, to have a chance at repairing trust between its citizens and its police department. I was pleased to hear Attorney General Garland mention some of the steps Metro has already taken, including the settlement with the family of Breonna Taylor. But there is much more to be done. I think one of the other things that is fortunate about this, when you get the Department of Justice telephoning you with their Civil Rights Division and telling you that they want to meet on pretty short notice to discuss some things, it's generally not about traffic tickets. It's about something very serious, and which it is. And the team they have and will assemble to come in here and perform this very important work, and I was very impressed with them. So there's hopefully there's a reason to call them the Department of Justice, and hopefully that's what will come about as a result of this this work that they're going to do. But I will certainly be an eager partner with the Department of Justice in this work and help them in any way possible. Thank you.
With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Mayor Fischer, the record of arguments that you have met with the DOJ this morning, when did you officially learn that there was going to be an investigation, and how did you learn?
We met with them at 11:30 this morning, and they explained why they were in town, the work that they'd been doing, and that they were going to be initiating an investigation to see where that would take them with our department.
Did they say that it was an overall to look at the last several years, or was it the Breonna Taylor case specifically that got their attention that they're going to delve into?
There's 4 specific areas that they're looking into, and that they will also then be going back, I think they said about 5 years or so. Have the 4 areas, did they release those with, did Attorney General Garland or anybody mention that? So I think they will be putting out that directive on what they'll be looking at.
Have you been given a time frame in terms of will it start this week or next week, and how long it will last?
It started with the announcement to us here today, and they did not want to give a timeline on exactly how long it would last. They did reference that investigations like this in Chicago and Baltimore took about 13 months or so. We're a smaller department, certainly than Chicago is, and depending on how good our records are in shape, that could dictate how quickly it will proceed.
The last recruit class was pretty small. Is there any concern that this is going to affect the ability to recruit additional people for the 3 classes that are coming up at LMPD?
Well, let me say something, then, Chief, I'll throw it to you. It's like, look, guys, I see this as like a really exciting, positive thing, because it's no secret that policing in America is at a crossroads right now. I mean, it seems like almost every newscast that you're on, there is something about the police in the community not working right. And I know that our police force, for instance, our police members, they don't want that. They want change. They want to see the community welcoming their work, and when their work is conducted under difficult circumstances, they want to understand why and how it happened, and they want to understand that good training practices were followed. So folks that are interested in changing the tenor and tone of public safety in our country, which is very important, will be very enthused about joining a police department that has the opportunity to be at the vanguard of that change, just like good police officers will be within LMPD, which we are honored to have many, many of those. Chief, do you want to comment on that? You want to comment on that?
This might be an opportunity, but they're looking into if there were violations of the Constitution or of federal law. So if there are findings that happened, do you consider that a good thing for the department that you've been over for 10 years?
Do you want me to do the? Oh, let me do this.
You
All
might.
right, yeah. Let me first address the recruitment thing, because I think it's important to notate that hiring and recruiting across the United States in law enforcement is proving to be extremely challenging. We have to rebrand our product. We have numerous self-inflicted wounds that have made our product unappealing, period. And so this is not isolated to LMPD by any stretch. And what I think is my job is to ensure that the department and the people we're hiring understand this actually empowers me, because what I will be pushing for is more resources, more training, right? And more tools other than lethal force to help our officers navigate the numerous situations they encounter day in and day out. And I think for too long we have allowed other parties to dictate how we do our job and how we train and what we invest in. And the reality of it is we need to be driving that. And so to me, I look at this as a huge opportunity to get us on the path forward that is most beneficial for the police department. And I think that, that's my job, is to make sure people understand that this is not a negative. With what these folks have been dealing with for the last 9 months, I think I would like to believe they've dealt with the hardest part, and that we can get to some level of normalcy in this city so that the community feels good about LMPD.
Darcy, would you repeat that question?
When you talk about this as an opportunity and a good thing, it's a federal investigation into if a city agency violated the Constitution or federal law. And so the finding, potentially, is that the police department that you've been over for 10 years breaking laws. So if there is a finding that there's something wrong with the department, do you consider that a good thing?
Well, first off, I hope that the investigation will show that the LMPD did a good job under very difficult circumstances. If it's found that there are violations of constitutional policing, that needs to be communicated, it needs to be understood, and it needs to be corrected if it's not understood. Look, my job is to represent all of the people of Louisville, not to protect the police department, not to protect any specific interest group. It's to make sure that justice is present throughout the entire community. And if that means welcoming audits, welcoming the DOJ, and they help us in that ultimate goal, that's a good thing for the community. I would regret it if it had happened, but the worst thing in the world would be to look the other way and deny that it happened.
Mayor Fischer, you've spoken about officers wanting change. But I think that maybe there would be some officers that said yes, but we've asked for change for years with the vote of no confidence against Chief Conrad, not only by the officers, but also by the bipartisan members of Metro Council. You've lost 15% of your officers in a year and a half. There was the dismantlement of the Ninth Mobile Division because of all the lawsuits. There was also the record-breaking increase in shootings and homicides. All of that happened before the Breonna Taylor case. So what would you say to somebody who says, yeah, now we welcome change, but we've been asking for it under this administration for years?
I would say that there's been plenty of change enacted by our police chiefs that we've had under my watch, and that things happen in a city our size. And we've never have just said we don't need to constantly change and improve. LMPD has a record of doing that. This is part of that ongoing record, what we've done since the tragedy with Breonna Taylor. We're always going to continue to change. People have different opinions on what change is also. Some people don't welcome change. Others embrace change. So we've always tried to improve, and we're going to continue to do so.
Do you regret not asking Chief Conrad to step down from you?
That's a simplistic question.
Do you regret it?
I'm not going to dignify a question like that because it's simplistic and
I think it's a valid question, given that there were multiple votes of no confidence. Are there any other questions? Anybody else?
You guys speak to again, you said the officers don't have anything to worry about, or they should be looking forward to this. And morale has been an issue for a while with officers in the department. They felt like they haven't been supported. Why is this something that they should look forward to? How is this going to make things better, especially right now?
well, to me, and I'll give it to Chief after this, our police officers are smart people. They see what's happening around the country with policing and police reform and questionings about police. They certainly have lived it and experienced it in our community. They're not happy with the type of situation that policing is in locally or nationally, so we have to change. And I would think that they would want to be part of that. Chief?
Thank you. I think that the police they've not enjoyed their job, right? And so they understand that whatever we've been doing isn't working. And they want clear line of sight on how can we be successful? How can policing be enjoyable again? What do we have to do to get this right? And I think that in this particular situation, when you have the DOJ coming in and providing pointed feedback, resources, and assistance, it only shores up what we're already working on. We're already working on this, but this is like a force multiplier on steroids coming in. It's not, I really believe that the hardest part for LMPD has been navigated. And they're now in a space where they realize and they see they have to change. They want to be proud of their job, of the work they're doing. They want the community to be proud of them. And so let's get there. And I don't look at this as something that's beating up on them. This is police departments, especially if you're in a city, you're going to have things just often are not going to go well, and sometimes they just go awful. And it's like anything else. Are you going to lay down, or are you going to pick up and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I need to do to come out on top, and that's what we're doing.
I hear you saying that you've made these reforms, got lots of changes, and talking about the positives there. But the Justice Department, what does it tell you about those reforms and the quality of those reforms if the Justice Department is coming in with this investigation?
Well, just on Friday, they obviously announced that they were going into Minneapolis. The two cities in the spotlight this last year were Minneapolis and Louisville. I really appreciated the Attorney General recognizing the progress that we've made in the city. But look, DOJ's job is not to sit back and say they're trying, they're making justice, making progress. Their job is to come in and understand what's happened and what's going on and put a stamp of approval on that, or say, no, we need to investigate in further areas. So the important thing here, folks, is for the citizens of Louisville to say, okay, we've looked at this every possible way, from Hillard Heights, through community forums, through hiring a new police chief, now the Department of Justice. And so that, if you're looking for the ultimate arbiter of what's taken place, they are it. And so that's why I think this is a win for the city, and it will remove any type of critics that we might have, from the most fierce critic on the left to the most fierce critic on the right, for different reasons, about the city having some agenda or some objective to prove with the way we're going about this. So that's why this is a good and welcome thing for the community.
Mayor, this
Hold on, let's see, is there anybody new? Yeah.
this is for President James. You mentioned that there's some cultural change that needs to happen within LSPD, and council has investigated officer actions and things like that before. But the things that the DOJ is looking into, would you call those cultural changes. They're looking into violations of the Constitution, use of force. Is that a cultural issue? Is that something deeper?
Yes, I feel like it's a cultural issue. If you're looking at the use of force and who that force is used against and how it's applied, if you're looking at searches and seizures and who is searched and why they're searched and how that constitutional authority that they have is applied, if you're looking at if there's any disparate impact upon the policies of the police department, upon its citizens, those are all cultural issues within the police department, and those are all things that need to be addressed.
But is it a culture, or if that's culture, then what does that mean about the culture of LMPD that they're looking into discrimination? They're looking.
That means there's areas that need to be changed. That's not a secret. We've been talking about that for years.
Chief Shields, if this were to end up in a consent decree where the department has to comply with some findings, can you talk about what that would mean for the city and sort of what it means for the department to be under consent decree and any experience you have with that?
So, what I'll say to you is, in terms of the particulars of it, I'll defer to the folks at the DOJ. What I can say is my good friend Michael Harrison is the commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department, and he and I speak fairly regularly, and they're under consent decree. And what I've seen through him is how, if you get the right team running the consent decree, it can do nothing but benefit the department and the city. And so I think ideally we don't find ourselves in that space because it's just, I think it can be costly, quite honestly. But I also will say if the DOJ comes back and says, we think this is necessary, well then it's necessary. And so I think then what do you need to do to make it a positive? And again, I would encourage you to reach out to Commissioner Harrison. He's living it real time, but he has told me repeatedly that the consent decree is what has allowed him to really drive change in Baltimore. So I don't, you know what? I want us to be successful, and I'm not gonna say that. There's no reason to drive fear or be an alarmist. That's just not where we're at. The DOJ wants us to get this right. Louisville's a major city. It has to get it right. So I look at this as a partnership. Someone's neutral. They're coming in and they're saying, this is what you need to do. And I mean, this isn't a surprise. We've had 4 years where, at least for the last 3, consent decrees were really put on pause for largely political reasons. And so we knew that they were going to come back, and you're going to see more of them. And it's okay. It's okay. I think that, you know, one of the things you think about it, we're always accused of, right or wrong, in policing is we investigate our own, you know. So I don't think it's wrong that someone who is qualified is coming in as an outside party providing feedback. I'll take that all day long. Thank you.
Stefan, last question.
I just wanted to ask, Chief Shields has been on the job for 3 months. From the outside looking in, and he's been very transparent. He even went to Metro Council and took ownership of something with the homeless camps being removed. It has to be a little bit disappointing that when you have a new chief, a new assistant chief in, and they're, being more transparent, and then this comes.
I don't see it that way.
So you weren't surprised, or just shocked, or disappointed in the beginning?
No, of course not. Look, under the Trump administration, they stopped basically these type of investigations. DOJ did. President Biden, Vice President Harris, Attorney General have entirely different type of perspectives. To me, this shows the national government is working, as I spoke about before. Louisville's been in the news, obviously. We all know that for the last year because of Breonna Taylor's tragedy. So when Minneapolis was announced on Friday, this is no surprise that this happened here today. And again, I mean, one of the reasons why we hired Chief Shields was because she's a reformer. Okay, so the more tools we can have to understand where our gaps are and where reform needs to take place, we're going to welcome those. So I would not, this isn't a win-lose type of thing in terms of LMPD against anybody. This is us seeking a win-win for our citizens, for the police department, for the United States, with so many departments, police departments going through struggles right now. So consider it an opportunity, I don't know, privilege to be in this spot, to be able to define what the future of policing looks like, where everyone in the city would say it's fair and it's just. No police department can really say that in America right now. So for us to be in that position, to have that opportunity and see the kind of development that could take place with our police department, with our citizens, to co-produce that, I think that's an extraordinary opportunity. Okay, thanks everybody.